Hello all, and welcome back to Behind the Seams with your narrator Jay from Infield Media. If you're new here, it's a pleasure to meet you, and if you're returning, then it's great to see you again. For those who are new here, let me tell you a little about what Behind the Seams is all about. It's about the beauty of baseball and the wonderful stories that began with the earliest days of the game and have continued on. Unfortunately, some of these stories have been lost to the times and players either forgotten or unheard of. I'm taking it upon myself to bring these players and their stories back to the light that they so rightfully deserve. In this episode, we'll be deep diving into another personal favorite player of mine and somebody who I happen to own an autographed bat and baseball from. Stay tuned to the end and I'll show off both of my prized possessions. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me the honor to introduce you to Monford Irvin, or better known as Monty. Before we jump into it, if you enjoyed this story and many others, please be sure to like and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest episodes. Maybe even think about sharing so we can continue to spread baseball knowledge throughout the world. Anyway, let's jump into it. Monty was born on February 25th, 1919 in Haleburg, Alabama to parents Cupid Irvin and Mary Henderson. Monty, like a lot of children back then, was gifted with a dozen siblings and he was the 8th oldest. A baker's dozen of kids and he was the 8th oldest. It's incredible, man. He even had a younger brother who played in the Negro Leagues named Cal Irvin. His full name? Calvin Coolidge Irvin, and he was named after the 30th President of the United States. Hand to God, I was stunned when I saw that myself. Anyway, his father Cupid worked as a sharecropper, which pretty much meant you worked on a farm that someone else owned, and when the landowner sold what you farmed, you really didn't get a piece of the pie big enough to make moves for your family's future. Because of the struggle in the South, and especially with the threat of violence that constantly threatened the lives of African Americans, the Irvins decided that it was best to head north for better opportunities. They settled in Orange, New Jersey. As a child, Monty almost didn't choose baseball, and one simple thing changed his entire career forever. He originally loved music, and while on his way to a music store to purchase a saxophone, he passed by a sporting goods store with a baseball glove sat in the window. The temptation proved too good to resist, and he went in and bought the glove. That one simple choice led Monty to becoming one of the greatest high school athletes in history. No joke, one of the greatest. Monty attended Orange High School, and when I tell you that he was a pure athlete, this dude was on an entirely different level. He earned 16 varsity letters and even broke the record for the javelin toss. He was involved in track and field and football, but his first love was always baseball. Unfortunately, at that time, his dream to play in the major league seemed unrealistic, but he still reached as high as he could, which was to play on one of the great Negro League teams of the time. It can't truly be grasped how amazing he was at sports in high school, but while he was excelling for the high school team, he received a tryout in Hinchcliffe Stadium and soon after joined the Newark Eagles of the Negro National League under a different name. He played for the Eagles as Jimmy Nelson to preserve his amateur status, which allowed him to continue playing high school and college ball. This guy was just out here turning the settings to easy and just decided to dominate every level. Now, the Monty Irvin you might remember may be the outfielder who roamed next to Willie Mays at the Polo Grounds, but before that, he was the star utility infielder for Newark. He played everywhere, but he found a place up the middle of the infield, turning double plays with another future Hall of Famer and the guy who broke the color barrier in the American League, Larry Doby. Could you imagine hitting a ground ball and seeing Larry Doby and Monty Irvin turning two? Like, I'd kill to be a bird on the fence watching that happen. Just once. The smoothness of that double play must have been insane to watch. Now, we're jumping ahead a little bit as Larry Doby wouldn't join Newark until 1942, so let's back up a little bit. From 1938 to 1941, Monty found himself amongst the great players of the Negro Leagues, as in those years he combined for a .354 batting average and an OPS of .988. For those who don't follow the in-depth stats of baseball, OPS is on-base percentage and slugging percentage combined. 988 is considered elite among the numbers, and a poor player would rank around 600 or under. Anyway, with those stats, Monty decided to approach owner Effa Manley about what he called a reasonable raise. Manley was pretty direct in saying no, but somebody else had seen the greatness in Irving and decided to offer him much more. This man was Jorge Pascual, or Pascual. He was the manager of the Veracruz Blues, and his team played in the Mexican League. The money offered was something Monty couldn't turn down, and pretty quickly he was on his way to Mexico. Although he missed a third of the season, Monty still finished among the top of the league with the league-leading 20 home runs and sporting a .397 batting average. Monty recalled a story that when he was going to bat in a game, Blues owner, Pascual, had ordered Irvin to hit a home run. Irvin responded he would do his best to keep the rally going, but Pascual insisted that it be a home run. I mean, I guess when you're getting paid that much, you better show up for the dude. When the opposing catcher, who would end up being Hall of Famer Roy Campanella, mind you, found out, he was stunned. Monty took a 1-1 fastball and launched it over the center field fence for a game-winning home run. Pascual had given Monty $500 and told him to split it with Roy Campanella. Monty had always said his time in Mexico in 1942 were some of his favorite memories because he experienced something that he couldn't experience here. True freedom. He could go anywhere, do anything, and be around anybody. In a time of race riots and segregation in the United States, Monty and other Negro League players who went to Mexico were seen as heroes, and the fans loved them. In 1943, and looking forward to going back to Mexico, Monty was hit with terrible news. He asked the Newark board to allow him to return to Veracruz for spring training, and expected a knee injury would have him fail the physical exam. Unfortunately, neither his injury or his wife would help him to secure a postponement. He would soon find himself drafted into World War II, joining the African-American 1313th General Services Engineers. He would later recall his time in the war by saying, "When I went into the war, I was treated very shabbily. I was with a black unit of engineers in England, France, and Belgium. More than anything else, we were treated well in the Army. They wouldn't let us do this. We couldn't do that. The guy said if they weren't going to give us a chance to perform, to reach our potential, why did they induct us in the Army? We felt like we were thrown away. We built a few roads, and when the German prisoners started to come in, we guarded the prisoners. We thought it would have been better if they hadn't inducted us and just let us work in a defense plant. We were just in the way." It's a shame to feel that way, man. Monty had spent 3 years in the war, and when he finally returned home, he soon realized losing 3 prime years in baseball and the war changing him physically and mentally were about to give Monty the biggest challenge of his life. Could he push through and find the fire again that made him so great? The great news is that he did. He returned to the Newark Eagles along with fellow war veterans Leon Day and Max Manning, and after an opening day no-hitter thrown by Day, it seemed like the 1946 team was destined for great things. Irvin led the way with a .369 batting average and a .991 OPS. They would go on to meet the Kansas City Monarchs in the Negro League World Series, where they would face a couple of Hall of Fame pitchers in Hilton Smith and another historical figure, Satchel Paige. Monty Irvin had the series of his life, hitting .462 with 3 home runs and helping lead the Eagles to a World Series championship. 1946 was a great year for Monty Irvin and Newark, but an incredible year for baseball in general. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, then let me give you the short and sweet. 2 men stood side by side, went toe-to-toe with organized baseball, and they came out victorious. Even today, when you turn on a baseball game, you see the change they brought, and it's been for the betterment of the game. In 1946, Jackie Roosevelt Robinson made his debut for the Montreal Royals, a minor league affiliate of the Brooklyn Dodgers. In 1947, Jackie would officially break down the walls of segregation that separated colored ball players from white ball players, and not only play extremely well, but also win Rookie of the Year on his way to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, obviously, I have plenty of love for Jackie, but this episode is for Monty Irvin. Monty was a terrific ball player, and there had been plenty of conversations behind closed doors on who should be the one to break into white baseball. Monty's name came up in a lot of conversations. Even amongst fellow Negro League ball players, it was assumed that if someone was going to do it, it was going to be Monty. Irvin would stay in Newark for a couple more seasons, and he averaged a .290 batting average and an OPS of .854, so he was still an excellent ball player and very capable of making the jump to organized baseball if he was given a chance. In 1949, it would finally happen, and now he would finally have a chance to show the major leagues what they've truly been missing all these years. Irvin once said in 1949, "This should have happened 10 years ago. I'm not even half the ball player I was then." And it's a fair statement. In 1949, Monty was already 30 years old, and for a lot of ball players, that's when your career really starts to slow down. Losing the 3 years to military duty really does offer a different viewpoint. What if Monty hadn't missed those years and continued to excel? Would the Dodgers have called him? Would Monty have broken the color barrier years early? Unfortunately, all we can do is assume, but I truly believe that it could have been him. Now, what we have to remember is that in 1949, Jackie Robinson had already been in the league for a couple years, so the average fan was used to seeing a colored ball player. But that doesn't mean that Monty came up without a challenge. They were still severely outnumbered and looking for a way to continue paving the path for future ball players. Luckily, Monty had manager Leo DeRocher, who was actually manager of the Dodgers when Jackie was ready to break the color barrier, but was let go for reasons that I won't say. Nothing terrible, but pretty frowned upon back then. If you really want to see it, I recommend watching the movie 42. It plays pretty close to what actually happened. Anyway, either way, DeRocher knew that if a player of any color had talent that could help his team win, then he was going to play. In his rookie season, Monty only played in 36 games, and it showed in his stats as he only compiled a .224 batting average and an OPS of .681. He had 17 hits and 76 at-bats, so it was definitely a challenge for him to build momentum, especially only playing in 36 games. In 1950, it was definitely a better way just to see how well Monty could do at the new level. In 110 games, he compiled a .299 batting average and an OPS of .889. Back to the almost elite level fans got used to seeing from him for Newark. He added on 15 home runs and 66 runs batted in. It was nice to see Monty back at this level, but there was a question of how long could he keep it up. I mean, going into the 1951 season and turning 32, what were the expectations? Whatever people thought they would get, he f***ing shattered expectations. Sorry for the foul language, but Monty went absolutely ballistic in his age 32 season. Let's start with this. He finished third in MVP voting behind Roy Campanella and Stan Musial. His OPS, .929. Batting average, .312. He added on 24 home runs and 121 runs batted in. 121. He even went 12 for 14 in stolen bases, which would actually be a career high for him. The guy even hit 11 triples. Another career high. If he didn't have one fielding error, he would have finished the season with a perfect fielding percentage of 1,000. Just when we thought it couldn't get better, it did. Not only did he have an amazing regular season, but it carried into the World Series. He batted .458 and tied a record with 11 hits in the World Series. The unfortunate thing was that the Giants ran into the Yankee powerhouse led by manager Casey Stengel, and only 3 years into a 5-year run of defending World Series champions. Sometimes it all just boils down to luck. After an amazing 1951 season that led to unfortunate heartbreak, I can only imagine the fire Monty was going into spring training with in 1952. Just when things were looking up, they plummeted. An unfortunate slide in the third base left Monty with a broken ankle, and it only allowed him to play in 46 games. He did finish the season batting over .300 and actually made the All-Star team as well. Some guys can beat you with a hand tied behind their back, and other guys can beat you off a broken ankle. Looking towards a resurgence, in 1953, the Giants were hit with another unfortunate setback. Just when Monty was healthy and ready to go, their center fielder, who you may know, was heading into military service. I mean, just a pretty good outfielder named Willie Mays. Heard of him? I have. Anyway, Monty played very well, but unfortunately the Giants struggled to keep it together as they finished in 5th place and 35 games behind the first place Dodgers. Monty did finish with a .329 average, 21 home runs, 97 RBIs, and an OPS of .947. Still so very elite at the age of 34 and trying so hard to get the grand prize. Luckily, there was a break in the clouds coming up and the sun was getting ready to shine. 1954, and the Giants were back. Willie Mays returned, and everything seemed to be pointing up. The Giants finished with a 97-57 record, first place, and looking at the Cleveland Indians in the World Series, who had just won 111 regular season games, which was actually a single season record. Unfortunately, Monty's age was beginning to show as his stats declined, as he only batted .262 and an OPS of .801. It wasn't a steep decline as he still hit 19 home runs and 64 RBIs, but there was definitely something in the water. The Giants did best the Indians in the World Series to give Monty his first and only World Series ring. MLB World Series ring, because obviously he got one with the Newark Eagles. But in the series, he only managed a .222 average with 2 hits and 9 at-bats. It started looking like the writing was on the wall. 1955, and his final year with the Giants. He was 36 and very obviously not the same player he was many years ago. He only played in 51 games. He hit .253. He hit 1 home run and 17 runs batted in. His OPS dropped down to .671, which was completely out of the normal for him. And among the numbers, he was actually ranked below average. Luckily, that offseason, Monty was left unprotected in the Rule 5 draft, and the Chicago Cubs decided to take a chance on the once great and pure athlete. Monty had an awakening and repaid the Cubs tenfold. He played in 111 games, he batted .271, 15 home runs, 50 RBIs, and raised his OPS back to .807. The Monty we all knew and remembered. It seemed like Monty was back, and it looked like he may have something left in the tank after all. Unfortunately, in spring training the following year, Monty suffered a bad back injury. His major league career would be finished, and he would go on to appear in 4 games for the Los Angeles Angels of the Pacific Coast League. It's pretty crazy. But this was the unfortunate end for Monty, and after a career that went from the Negro Leagues to Major Leagues, it's fair to say that he was truly amazing and one of the great talents baseball had seen. Luckily, this wouldn't be the end of Monty and his time in baseball, as after serving in public relations for Rheingold Brewing Company, he returned to baseball to take the role of assistant to the commissioner, who was Bowie Kuhn at the time. Irvin stood in that role until 1984, when Bowie would eventually retire and decided to begin taking it easy. He settled into Homosassa, Florida, and took a role with MLB for special appearances. Something to keep him busy. Among the many honors Monty received after his career, some of the most important and incredible included Orange Park in New Jersey being renamed to Monty Irvin Park, which included a bronze statue, his number 20 being retired by the San Francisco Giants, honored with the Bob Feller Active Valor Award for serving in the United States Army during World War II, inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame, the Mexican Professional Baseball Hall of Fame, and last but certainly not least, Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame inductee of 1973. On January 11th, 2016, Monty Irvin died of natural causes in Houston. He was 96 years young. Monford Irvin being one of my favorite players didn't really come to me until I watched the Ken Burns documentary Baseball and wanting to learn about this man. After doing the research, I was enamored with him and began wondering what could have been if Branch Rickey chose him to break the barrier. Aside from him being one of my personal favorites, I'm also extremely lucky enough to have a signed baseball bat and a signed baseball from the man himself. Easily my most prized possessions in my collection, and hopefully one day I'll be able to pass them to my children and tell them all about the guy who helped lead me down this journey to understand baseball in a more deeper meaning. Monty Irvin combined stats, a combined average of .305, 139 home runs, 684 runs batted in, an 883 OPS, and one of the greatest American athletes we've ever seen. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Behind the Scenes. It truly means a lot to see you guys watching these and enjoying them as much as I enjoy writing them. Remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. So, the one thing I did say, I did have a bat, I did have a ball, and I want to show them to you just so you guys aren't thinking I'm a liar. So this is my Monty Irvin signed baseball, obviously, but I got that years ago, I believe. I went to a sports memorabilia store, and obviously knowing Monty's story at the time and saw the ball in the case, I was like, yeah, I need to have that. I was like, I'll pay whatever. I think it ended up being like $175. Take it, no problem. And then this I just got last year for Christmas. It was a gift from my sister, and I knew I wanted it the minute I saw it. It is obviously a Monty Irvin signed baseball bat. The inscription says, Monty Irvin, 5-time Hall of Fame, 73, 421 batting champ, Newark Eagles. So, yeah, something very important to me. But anyway, that is it for this episode. As you all know, my name is Jay. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next episode. Cheers.